So this is my first tutorial on Illustrator, and I know a lot of people have been asking for a very long time, how do you create vector kit icons for things like FPL or team lineups? And just scrolling through Twitter like I normally do, I came across this particular image from Kit Kingdom 83, and I just thought it was cool. I think this is one of their magnets, and it's a good to have a base when you're drawing something. You can do things freestyle, that's absolutely fine. If you want to do it freestyle, that's cool. Just for this example, I just want to show you how you can turn something which is already visually there, kind of trace it, manipulate it a bit, and create something where you can create your own icon from scratch. So let's just get straight into this then. So I've taken this image off of Twitter, like I said, and I've propped it down, and then I've pasted it onto this artboard, brand new artboard on Illustrator. Now, the first thing you want to do when you start tracing anything is you're going to want to select it, and then we're going to drop the opacity down to, I think, about 20%. So you can just see the outlines. Let me just zoom in here. As you can see the black outlines of this magnet right here. I'm going to ignore the white edging because we're doing an icon and that's not needed. Down on this section, I'm just going to lock it, and I'm going to rename it to trace layer and hit enter. Now what we're going to do is create a new layer. Now, normally, if I'm creating a kit, I would use the grids. So I'd go up to view, then I'd go to show grid. And if we zoom in using Command and plus, you can see this grid. And basically what I would do then is snap it to certain points along the grid. But for this particular tutorial, it's not really needed because we're not doing one exactly from scratch. This is more a trace type one. So let's just go to view and hide grid. Now what we're going to do here is on this new layer, which we've created, layer 2, I'm going to drag over from the left, and I'm going to go to the midway point on the shirt. Just gives me a reference and click off, and then it turns back to the cyan. Now, if you want to hide that on Illustrator, it's Command and semicolon. Different to Photoshop, which is Command and H. So you can turn that one on off. So from this point, we're just going to zoom in. I'm going to start with the absolute outline. We're going to come to the pen tool. Now, I need to make sure it's not snapping to anything, which is not. So we're just going to go to the middle of the shirt here where we created our guide, and we're just going to snap here. As you can see, it's got the little pink guide there. I'm going to click there. Then we're going to move it up to here. Now, you're going to click and hold, and that's going to create this kind of bungee effect where you can create the line in any shape you want with these handles. Just going to follow the line of the shirt. Now, there's a couple of things you can do here. You can either hold Option and drag the handles back, or hit Command Z to go back to that, or see where there's this little V by the pen tool, just click there, and that'll get rid of the handle on that side, but keep this one because it will still keep the curve. Now what we're going to do is we're going to follow the lines and trace. Now the more anchor points you do, the more detailed you can create, but just remember, the more anchor points you add, the more you might have to clean up later, and it makes it a little bit harder if you want to start manipulating stuff. So we're just going to keep dragging around. And you can take your time with this, like it's not something which you have to rush. What I'm going to do is I'm going to taper the front of the shirt. So we're going to go to the guide again. So we're going to snap into the middle of the guide and just add a slight, whilst holding shift by the way, because that keeps it at a 90-degree angle. Just come down to there and hit the guide snap there. So at the moment, if we zoom out, we've got half a shirt shape. And if I highlight that and we invert it, as you can see, you've now got half a shirt. Now if I turn off the bottom layer, you can now see that it is a fairly simple silhouette of the shirt. I'm going to hit Command Z a couple of times and go back to the outline. Now what we're going to do here, we're not going to redraw the other side. Okay, let's make this easy as possible because you want a symmetrical shape really. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the line that we just drawn, hit Command C, then hit Command F. Command F will paste it in front of the line you've just done. Then we're going to go up to Object, Transform, and Reflect. And you're going to reflect it vertically 90 degrees, which is pretty much the preset usually on Illustrator. And hit OK. Now, holding Shift, you're going to click down on your mouse and drag it to the right. And we're going to snap it to the center line here. If you need to zoom in, you can, because sometimes Illustrator doesn't always snap it exactly where you want to. If I just hide the grid with Command and colon, you can see, zooming in to this point here, there's an ever so slight gap, okay? But it is snapped along the center point of the two lines. So we're just going to turn that off. Now, at the moment, these two images are floating around independently. Obviously, we want to bring them together. There's two ways of doing this. You can either hold down, left click on your mouse, drag and select, and then invert the stroke to fill. As you can see, it's now created a nice silhouette, but these images are still not joined. So what you can do is, again, select both, come up to Pathfinder, up here, which I've got set up, and hit to merge. And now you can see they're all one shape. The other way of doing it, if you want to tidy up the lines nicely, and I'm going to zoom in here. So we're going to use the direct select tool right here, and we're just going to highlight and drag over these two anchor points. So it's only showing one, but that's because the two of them are together. And just to make sure, go to Object, Path, Average. There is a shortcut, but I never really use that one. But what I will do, as you can see here, it says average both. So if you average both, that means that both of them will sit over the top of each other perfectly. Hit OK. And then hit Command J. That will join the points together. You see how that little gap there just joined and filled. I'm going to do it for the bottom as well, because down here, exactly the same. So as you can see here though, there's this bump in the middle of the line, which we kind of want to get rid of. So we're going to click on here. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can either do it manually by eye, but then it's not symmetrical. A bit like this, and just create a smooth line. Or what you could do, and what I would normally do, is I would delete that line out. Now you're probably thinking, why would you do that? I'll show you why. We can go to the pen tool, we can draw a straight line across. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add an anchor point, and we're just going to add the grid back in there and hit plus there. So we've added an extra anchor point onto this line that we've just drawn. Now using the direct selection tool and shift, we're going to drag down on the guideline to here. Now at the moment, that is two straight lines. So what we want to do here is we want to then curve this area off. So we're going to come up over to here, hold down, and we're going to go to anchor point tool, this kind of chevron looking icon. So left click down, now hold shift, and then drag, and that will create you a nice symmetrical curve. If you want to move this curve up because you think it's not quite aligned, go for the direct selection tool, and now you can move it to where you want it to be. And now you've got a symmetrical line that doesn't have a bump in it. And you could do the same for the base if you want, but actually this base is looking all right. There's not a kink there, so we're good. So that's the outline. Now, we're not going to fill in with any color just yet. There's a couple of ways we can do this. We also want to look at the other outlines. Now, I could have tidied these up, but actually they're okay. So what I would normally do before I join anything is tidy up one side, because then you haven't got to do it again. So we're going to add the sleeve details now. So we're going to go back up to the pen tool, and we're just going to draw in these curves here. Again, if you want to tidy up any anchor points and you're not happy with the flow or anything like that, you can come back and re-edit. And we're going to select this, Command C, Command F, Object Transform, Reflect. And we're going to do the same to this side. See, the problem is with Illustrator now is if you don't do it by halves, it never quite matches up. Because notice it just wants to snap where it wants to snap, because obviously there are certain values that Illustrator wants to work with. So now we've got our two sleeve lines in there. Now we could start working on the collar next, but what I kind of want to do to begin with is split up the sleeves from the shirt. We're going to select with a black arrow the outline, and we're going to invert it to black, so it's a full fill. As you can see now, the lines are slightly beyond, because obviously we've converted them. They're still a line, and this is still a solid. So what we're going to want to do here is choose a different color for these shirts. So just anything for now. We don't want a plain color, just any basic fill. Because what we're going to want to do is split the sleeves off from the rest of the shirt. Okay. So just using the pen tool, we're just going to extend out the sleeves, and I'll show you why in a minute. So you're probably thinking, well, what good is that to me? What this will do is it will be able to split the sleeves away from the actual shirt itself. So if we now select these lines and the fill color and come over to here and hit divide on Pathfinder, always have the stroke in front of the fill, and now you will see the sleeves are separate to the shirt, and you can color them in whichever way you want. So we want to try and add that line back in the outline. So we're just going to select everything again, hit Command C, Command F. We're going to fill everything to black because everything is selected. And then we're going to come over to our Pathfinder tool and hit either Unite or Merge. Doesn't actually matter for this one. And then we're going to, again, change the fill to a stroke. I'm just going to move it to the outside and increase to 2. So now you've got your stroke back in on the outside, and you've got your separate sleeves and your shirt fill. Hit Command Z and bring these back together. Okay, now at the moment these are all on the same layer, so this is where you want to start splitting up your layers and also your components to make it easier to work with future. So we're going to select the line and we're going to hit Command X. Just going to lock this layer, layer 2. I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to hit Command F, and we're going to rename this layer to outline. Now and hit lock again. I like to lock them just so I know I'm not direct selecting or messing around with any other layers. I'm just going to turn that one off for now using the eye toggle here. Now on this layer below for the actual shirt, again we've got the sleeves and the body as separate components, but they're on one layer. So we're just going to rename this layer quickly to body, and then we're going to select the sleeves, but we're going to use the direct selection tool because at the moment they're still technically connected to the body. Hit Command X to cut and lock that layer, create a new layer. Now hit Command F and they are directly in front where they should be. Lock that again, and now let's rename that layer to sleeve. You can rename by double clicking on the layer and typing in. I always like to use all caps, just the way that I am. If I turn all these 3 layers on, as you can see, you've now got your outline, you've got your sleeves and your body, or I can turn off the body and just have the sleeves, or vice versa, or I can have just the outlines. So it shows you how you can break down pretty quickly of assets. So I'm just going to turn on the background layer, the trace layer. Now we're going to turn off the body. Okay, so now we can see through. Now what we are going to do is we're going to add back in these sleeve lines. Okay, so what we could have done is repeated them on a separate layer, but what we're going to do for accuracy on this one is we're going to select the sleeves, and then we're going to hit Command C, Command F. We're going to invert, we're going to change the stroke to black, and I only want 1 point because I don't want it the same weight as the outer of the shirt. And I'm going to give it to the inside. Okay. As you can see here now, you've got this perfect line following up around. So if you basically, it just looks better on the detailing if you keep the strokes different. So I always tend to do the heavier stroke on the outside and a lighter one on the inside. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to select this one and this one, and we're going to hit Command X to cut. I'm going to lock this layer for the sleeve. I'm just going to add another layer and hit Command F. Now if I turn off the other layers very quickly below, just because we just want to isolate this particular outline, I don't want the outlines around the sleeves here. So what we're going to do is just going to delete those out, and you can just select those with the drag selection tool and get rid of the anchor points. It's interesting, why does that happen? So right here, as you can see, okay, so there's a random anchor point. So sometimes if you've added extra anchor points without realizing, you'll need to clean them up. And now as you can see, we've got these two lines. Basically what I want to do is taper the ends off. Okay, so effectively, I mean, we could add a cap. As you can see, it's rounded off the edges if we add the cap. But I want it to be a little bit more sweeping than that. So what we're going to have to do is create our own art brush, which for a minor detail is not actually that difficult. We're going to create a rounded rectangle object. Okay, like that. So once you've created your rounded rectangle, just highlight this because there'll be two anchor points in the middle, and drag out. Same again, and drag out. Reason for this is because we want to create an art brush which we can then use for basically styling these lines up for the sleeves. So once you've selected that, come over to here for the brush definition, hit new brush, and we're going to go for new art brush. The direction doesn't really matter as long as it's going on the length of the line, and we're going to hit OK. Now when we select this line here, you will have created your line, which is here. And as you can see, that line is now copied this shape, and that will be in your brushes for this file. And we've just done it to the other one as well. So when we edit everything else back in, now as you can see, the line detailing tapers quite nicely. And that's what a lot of illustration artists do. They create their own brushes with tapers for doing their line work, which always is quite a good look. Now for the body, we're going to turn the body off, and we're going to turn back on the trace layer because we're now going to be concentrating on the collar elements, which we are going to start working on. As I said, it doesn't matter that the background doesn't match too much because we work in a symmetrical way. So we're going to hit Command : to bring back up, which is on a separate layer. Remember, your guides are also locked to your layers, so I needed to turn the body on for that one. So what we're going to do is very quickly, just going to select that, hit Command X, and we're going to paste a new guide in, Command F. Right, so we're in the middle now, and we're going to turn the body off, as I said. So we're going to come back to the pen tool. I'm going to choose black again for the stroke, and we're going to create a new layer again and just call this color detailing. So for this one, we're going to snap to this anchor point here. And now you can see the outer edge of this collar has some nice line detailing. So what we're going to do for this one now is we're going to direct select these two, hit Command C, hit Command F. You know what's going to happen now. We're now going to reflect them, and we're going to snap them to the middle again so that we're symmetrical. Okay. Now I believe if I turn the guide off, because I've now got it on a separate layer, as you can see, they're now matched up pretty much perfectly. Again, we're going to want to join these two. So I'm going to hit Command J. As you can see, it's looking all right. We probably want to create a different line for this particular collar. So I think what we're going to do here is create a line that is heavier at the front, but then tapers out to the back. So what we can do is, whilst we're still on this layer, we're going to create that rounded rectangle again, but we're going to create quite a long one. I want it to be a fill. The reason we're doing a long one is because it's easier to control the edging, but we don't want it to be too heavy. So we're going to select the endpoints again, zoom in. So we're going to create the art brush again. Remember art brush. I'm just going to call this collar line detail. Hit OK. When we click on here, we can now select that as a line detail. And the same for this one. Now, if you're not happy with those thicknesses, you can go up to stroke weight and still reduce them. So that's down to a 0.5, 0.5. Okay. I'm just going to delete that out because we no longer need it. As you can see here, if I get rid of the background, you've now got your collar detailing with your sleeve lines on it. So we're just going to add a tiny bit of color into the collar right now, because that is going to massively help us with the color blocking. So we're going to create a layer below. I'm just going to unlock the collar detailing, copy both of these, Command C, lock the layer, Command F, so these are now below. I'm just going to change these back to basic. Now I'm going to get rid of the other outline as well, because we're going to join these up quickly. Okay, so on your endpoints, try just to follow the curve a little bit. It will help keep within the boundaries of the outline. Right, and now you've created essentially a solid. So if you now invert this, that's now your block color for your collar. Turn these back on. Obviously you don't want black for that one, it's too heavy a color, so we're just going to call that coloring. Unlock that. We're just going to have that and use the eyedropper tool. Just select the sleeve color, so there's a tiny bit of difference. And now, as you can see, that is now overlapping, so we're going to bring the outline to the top. That's why you always work in layers. It just makes it a lot easier to work with. What I'm going to do now is, with the sleeve and the color coloring, I'm just going to select these and change these to cyan. And now, as you can see, it's starting to come together. I'm not too happy with these lines. I'm going to reduce these to about 0.3. But they were too heavy. That's better. And also on the sleeve lines, 1.5. So you want to do the inside of the collar now. So we're going to turn off the body, bring back up the trace layer, and we're just going to trace the inside line for the back of the collar. So we're going to go back to the collar detailing layer where we've got the lines. Obviously we can turn them on and off here. And we're going to do what we did at the start with the line that joined the outline. We're just going to draw. So that line's too thick, so we're just going to draw a line across here. And also we're going to send that one to the back, so we're going to hit Command and then use the open bracket tool, I believe, to move to the back. what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to tidy this up and create the basically the color block to sit behind this line. Now what you could do for this one is create almost like a stitched effect. So we'll go to the dash line here, and then we're going to add a round cap, and we're going to change the details a little bit. So the dash is going to be a 10 and the gap's only going to be a 4. Let's actually reduce the dash again to 6. And what we'll do is we will reduce the opacity to about 50%. As we zoom out, get rid of the back layer. Now you've got some stitch detailing going along, which sort of matches with the original, but this is kind of extra detailing that you can add into your kit designs or your vector. So we've got our collar back lines. Now we want to add the colouring behind here as well. So the best thing to do is sometimes you will have to redraw over lines for doing colours behind. It's not as easy as just taking objects and then just colour filling them, because some lines will intersect. So create a new layer or use the pen tool. Now using the originals as a guide, okay, you can kind of roughly do it if you really want to. I'm going to draw within the area. And now we've got the back of the collar. Now what I've just done is I've just darkened that color ever so slightly, just so there's a bit of difference. So I've just added in some extra detailing on the sleeves, as you can see here if I zoom in. So I've got some stitching and I've got an extra line for the cuffs. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add the sleeve collar detailing color to underneath here, which I've just done. So create a new layer, layer 11. Just going to drag that one up above sleeve, and now we're just going to quickly draw in. And then we're going to duplicate this layer, Command C, Command F, Object, Transform, Reflect. I'm going to hold Shift and drag that object over to the other side within the bounding box. Zoom in if you can see the layer, and obviously it's within the outline that we drew earlier. And we're going to rename this to Cuffs. Okay, so you've basically got all your elements now for the shirt, and you can either leave it there or you can start to add some shading. So we're going to choose sleeve, and then we're going to add another layer above it. We're going to rename this as Sleeve Shadow. I'm going to go up to our pen tool, I'm going to select the color black, and we're going to draw a block color. And then we're going to change the opacity to 20%. As you can see, what you don't want to do is have any overhang. Just going to drag this layer up above to just above the outline. Now you can see the shadow comes across. Now if you're not happy with that line there, you can always drag it over. Remember, this is the good thing about Illustrator, you can redraw anything, move anchor points, and follow any curves you want. See, that looks much better now. So I'm going to select that, Command C, Command F, Object, Transform, Reflect. Now again, we're going to move this over to the other side. I'm going to have to align it, zooming in using Command and plus. And then Command minus to zoom out. As you can see now, you've got some nice shadowing going on under the arms. Now, for the side of the shirt, generally you'd have this kind of curve coming around here and then down the side. So we're going to draw that one in now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to again select Command C, Command F, Object Transform, Reflect, Vertical Reflect. Obviously move over to the other side holding Shift. And if I turn it off and on, you can see the shadows turn off and on this particular layer. The inside of the collar is also something you want to concentrate on for the shadows on this. So again, we're just going to zoom in. And naturally you would see a shadow heavier in the corner. So again, we're going to draw this shadow in. And as you've seen here, I've put the opacity up higher on this because it's on the inside of the collar where there would be a bit more shadow, so I've gone for 33%. And as you can see, that looks pretty good. So Command C, Command F, you know it by now, reflect. And move over to within the lines. One good thing you can do, if ever you want to align stuff perfectly to the center, is select both objects and just make sure that that guide is in the middle. If it's not, you can hit Command G and group, and then snap it to the intersection point. And then if you want to ungroup, it's Command Shift and G to ungroup both those objects. So this is our base model now, which we can start working with. And I think when anyone's creating kits and stuff, they want to bring in the badges and sponsors and all those kind of things. We're not going to design all of those now, we'd be here for hours. So I'm going to bring in a couple of elements that I did earlier. So as if by magic, we suddenly have our badge and our sponsor for the shirt. So this is an icon that I created for Crystal Palace, just for fun. And this is obviously the top of the league logo, which we're going to use for a sponsor. So how you would do this is once you've brought in and created your vector icons, which I got here, you want to position them on your shirt. I've created a new layer here called Object. So for the Crystal Palace badge, I've grouped everything. I'm just going to move it over here and we're going to move it into the traditional position of the upper left part of the shirt. I know Nike have gone a bit crazy with their badge sizing now, but for your vector, let's put it there. And for the sponsor, it's usually dead center of the shirt, about midway down across the chest. Again, use your guides if you're unsure, but obviously with snapping on Illustrator turned on, it does make it a lot easier. Just going to increase the size a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to turn that guide off because I've got it on a separate layer. So now you've got your badge and your sponsor on there, but as you'll notice, they don't really follow the curve of the shirt. They look a bit too flat. Also, that badge looks a bit too big, so we're just going to decrease that and move it to about there. Perfect. Okay. Obviously, we're dealing with two flat objects on top of a kind of faux 3D looking vector object. We want to start to curve this object, which is obviously the sponsor. So how we're going to do that is we're going to click on the object. We're going to go to Object, Envelope Distort, one of my most favorite tools on this, and make with Warp. As you can see, default is usually Arc. Now, actually, Arc's perfect for this because we want it to curve this way, as if it was bending around your body. So now we're going to drag the slider to the left side and create a kind of negative arc. And that's good. But you'll notice it's curving inwards, which isn't ideal because obviously it would naturally go outwards. So we can play with the values here as well. And we're going to play with the vertical. What the vertical will do is play with these outside edges. So you've got this curve here and on the outside. And hit OK. Now you've got a more natural kind of curve which then follows the flow of the shirt. And that looks much better. And we're going to do the same with the badge, but remember the badge is off center. So you don't want to have exactly the same. The curve here would kind of follow the left-hand side of the shirt. So we're going to go to Object, Envelope Distort, and make with Warp. But we're going to set the middle value to 0, and we're going to play, I'll set all of them to 0 quickly, with the horizontal. And we're just going to very, very slightly tweak it to about 3%. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it just gives that more natural kind of feel to it. Now it kind of looks like it's slightly sloping off the side of the chest. That is essentially your base for creating a kit. Now, if you want to start creating things like stripes, this is where things get a little bit more complicated, because you want to follow the kind of 3D aspect that we're going for, but also you're not going to be drawing these lines manually because you want them to be accurate. So this is the way that I would personally do it. So I'm just going to lock that object down. Let's try and create a Crystal Palace type color kit. So what we're going to want to do here is obviously have the lines going down the shirt. So what I would do is I would go to the layers panel, hit on body, and then hit the create new layer. And all we're going to do is we're going to create some straight rectangles. We're going to do this off grid, so I'm going to move to the side. Don't need to use a grid or anything for this because everything will snap. So you want it about the same height as the shirt. Okay, I've done it there for now, but we're just going to drag it off to the left. And then we're going to hit Option, Shift, and drag to the right. And as soon as you see that intersection, it should snap, so those two shapes will be together. We're going to change that one to a different color. So we're going to go with the blue of Crystal Palace and the red for this one here. Just going to add a little bit more pink to it because I think it looks better. And then what we're going to do is we're going to highlight those two by dragging over using the selection tool. We're going to hit Option, Shift again, hold down your mouse and drag to create more stripes. And you can do the same again. So you've created your stripes. Now I'm going to highlight them and we're going to hit Command G, okay? Because we want them to group as one object. Now we're going to drag this to the middle of the shirt. As you can see, the intersection line over here. We can also turn on our grid as well, our guideline. Let's just have a look. Yeah, just line up directly in the middle. You're probably thinking, okay, yeah, that's fine, but it's not cut to the shirt shape and it's not shaped. That's what we're going to work on now. So as we did with the sponsor and the badge, we're going to hit on this object here, which we've created for our stripes. We're going to go to Object and we're going to go to Envelope Distort. And again, we're going to go to Make with a Warp. I'm going to reset the values of arc. And now we're going to go for the bend. As you can see now, it's starting just to bend with the shape of the shirt. So as you can see, the blue kind of starts to follow this line a little bit, which is kind of perfect for what we want. Now I'm going to hit OK. Now what you can do is you can start to actually edit these curves yourself within by dragging the handles. It's still non-destructive. So if you want it to go out more out at the top, you can do. If you want it to go more out at the bottom, just drag that out just to match in. Yeah, I think for me that's good. So we're going to stop there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create this back to a live editable object. So we're going to hit the selection tool and select this object. We're going to go to Object. We're going to go to Expand. And we're going to expand Object and Fill. And now you can see it's been expanded to an object. And the lines once again have come apart if you use the direct selection tool. If I select it all, it's one object, which is exactly what we want. Now, how to get it to cut to the body of the kit. Okay, so we're going to lock this layer. I'm just going to name this to stripes. So I want to go to the body. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the body layer and we're going to select the image below, hit Command C. Now there's a reason we're using this one and not the outline. And we're going to go back to the stripes, hit Command F, and that will paste it directly on top. Now we want to convert it back to an outline. So we're going to switch to the stroke tool and we're going to move the stroke to the outside. It's very important that you do this. Okay. Now, we could use clipping masks, but if you're using anything like Figma or you're trying to do anything in web, the problem is with clipping masks on Illustrator, whilst they're non-destructive, some of these programs really do struggle to kind of recognize the fact that these items have been clipped. And whilst the clipping mask is very, very easy and very quick to do, you kind of need a hard clipped edge around it rather than something that is transparent and is sat there in the background. So now we've got our white layer selected. We're going to hit Command X and we're going to move it to the back. So I'm going to hit Command B. Okay, so you can't see it, but it's there on this layer. So we've got our colors and the line behind. We're going to select all of these together. So that's just those two layers, and we're going to hit divide. As you can see, it doesn't look like anything's happened, but there's this edge which is going around here. That means it has been cropped, okay, or cut. So what we can do, and this may seem a little bit long-winded, is we can start to delete out these areas around the shirt using the direct selection tool. And now if I add the outline back in, as you can see perfectly, the lines are now following the shirt and they've been cropped perfectly. So if I now drag, as you can see now, those lines, the ones that we have warped, are now perfectly in the shape of the shirt. I'm going to hit Command Z to move it back to the center. And as you can see also, the shadows are still above it because obviously we split everything out into layers. Now we're going to lock that layer. I'm going to move back to the objects layer because the sponsor is in black. So we're going to hit Object, Expand, exactly the same as we did with the lines before. Hit OK. And then we're going to hit White. Okay. So now the sponsor looks much, 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 much better on top of the kit. Crystal Palace's kit, I believe, has the same coloured sleeves as the blue usually. So I'm going to select these two with the selection tool. I'm going to hit the colour picker and just go for blue. And the cuffs, I believe, usually are yellow, aren't they? Or on some of the kits. We're going to go for yellow on this one anyway. So we're just going to unlock the layers with the colours for the cuffs. Again, why I like working in layers. Just going to select layer yellow. And that one as well is yellow. Now what I like to do, just to finish off, just going to lock all these layers back down, is at the bottom I like to add a shadow for a bit of 3D, especially if you're going to use it on a pitch or anything like that. So we're just going to go to the layers, add another layer at the bottom of the stack. I'm going to call this shadow. I like to make an ellipse. So we'll go over to the color selection tool. We're going to choose black again. Go up here to the rectangle tool, hold down on your mouse, and we're going to select ellipse tool. And we're just going to drag across like so. We want a kind of nice oblong shape in the center. Now, that doesn't look great. It's just a black object at the moment. So a solid shape, it doesn't look great. So we're going to go up to Effect, and we're going to go to Blur, sorry, and Gaussian Blur. And we say 40 pixels. Let's go with 40 pixels. And then for the opacity, we're going to drop it down to about 40%. It's a bit better. Actually, I'm going to drag this out, make it a little bit longer. And what we're going to do now is duplicate it. So Command C, Command F, slightly reduce the size by holding the Shift tool. Drag it a bit more. And there you have it, a finished vector football shirt with shadows. Now I probably should clean up a little bit around here. As you can see, there's a little bit of red down this bottom corner, which I can do at a later stage. I'm just going to do some extra detailing now, just to show you also what you can do extra to the kits to give them a little bit more pizzazz, shall we say. So bear with me as I just add in the extra details. And there you have it. So all I've done here is just added some extra details to the collars. So I've created my own art brushes and basically just drawn around the center of the collar, just to create that kind of ridged effect that you'd get on a more classical cuff or collar. We're going to finish up there. Honestly, like Neil Buchanan used to say in Art Attack, try it yourself. Please hit the subscribe button, like the video if you learned anything at all. Thank you very much, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one.